This is the 18 Strong Podcast with Jeff Pelizzaro, episode number 63.
Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pelizzaro.
Hey, what's up? This is Jeff Pelizzaro. Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast. And this week, we're doing something a little bit different here on the show. Normally we interview, some of the greatest golf coaches, golf fitness specialists, mental game coaches in the world of golf. But this week, you got just me. But don't turn off your podcast just yet. We're going to talk about the off season for you, for the regular guy, and the formula for you to have a great off season this year. It seems like so much of the information that's out there for, strength training, fitness for golfers is geared so much towards the professional, the high-end player, the college player. And that's what we do here on the 18 Strong Podcast is, we interview the best coaches working with the best in the world. But I don't think that the content that's out there on the interwebs is always applicable to you. And so what we want to do here, and that's the reason behind the podcast and the website, is we wanted to take the guys that are doing this at the highest level, working with the golfers at the highest level. What are the techniques that they're using? What are the training methods that they're using? And then how can we break that down and make this stuff applicable to you and what you're doing on a daily basis? And so, look, I'm realistic. I understand that you don't have time to train like a tour pro. And most of the stuff that's out there is too complicated. It's too time consuming. And it's just not fathomable for most golfers, 90% of the golfing population, to do the things that, these tour players are doing on a regular basis. So unless you have an unlimited budget, unlimited time, I realize that you probably have kids. You're just like me, working long hours. You're running on lack of sleep. You're running a business. You're taking kids to soccer practice or taking your grandkids to soccer practice. You're traveling. You've got all these different things going on. So most guys aren't able to train 4 to 5 days a week. It's just not possible. So I understand that you need something more efficient. You need something that can be done at home or can be done at a gym or can be done on the road with minimal time. And something probably first and foremost and most important is something that's going to simply prevent injuries and allow you to play more comfortably, play better, play healthier, and play longer. And so we're going to cover all of that stuff in today's episode on how to create the regular guy's formula for a great off-season program. So we've got some great stuff in this episode. Now, before we get into it, I just wanted to say that my cousin Ryan and I, Ryan McMullen, who is basically the behind-the-scenes guy here at 18 Strong. Most of you have not met him, have not seen him, have no idea what he looks like. But I wanted to let you know that Ryan and I have been working behind the scenes on a lot of different projects, communicating with a lot of different people. But one of the things that we have recently done is we created a new gift for you, the 18 Strong listener, which is a complete in-home warm-up that you can do before going to the course. So I realize that most of the time you're rushing to the course, you're getting to the range, maybe hit a couple of balls, you run to the first tee, and you're off and running. Your heart rate's up because you're flying into the parking lot. Your first tee ball maybe isn't the purest strike that you've had, and it's going to take a couple holes for you to get your swing kind of warmed up and kind of feel the flow of your round. So I realize that you also probably don't want to be the guy on the driving range that's, doing all kinds of crazy warm-up exercises and, kind of looking like an idiot at the end of the range. So here's what we did. We created a 15 to 20-minute video for you to, watch at home or whatever. You can watch it on your phone. And I walk you through basically a full warm-up where you're doing some foam rolling, you're doing some dynamic stretches, you're doing a little bit of resistance band stuff to get your body pumped up and primed and ready to play golf. And so you can do this right before you jump in the car, you head over to the course. Even if you've got a little bit of a drive to the course, it's going to get your body a little bit more ready to play. So then you can do a light little warm-up when you get there, maybe hit some balls, slap a few putts, and then you're off and running. So, and the best part is we've also got a PDF template there with pictures of every single one of the drills. So it's not like you have to watch the video every time. Just print out the PDF. You keep it at home, throw it in your drawer, throw it in your bag, whatever you want to do. So if you go to 18strong.com/warmup, you'll get the free gift right there. It's all there for you. So print out the PDF, and you'll have that ready to go. All right, let's get into some of the meat here, talking about the great formula for your off-season program. So when I talk about the off-season, I like to kind of break it down into what I call the 4 R's. And the 4 R's stand for rest, recuperation, rebuilding, and refocusing. And I've got all these notes. I'm going to have them all typed out on 18strong.com on the show notes page. So you don't have to take notes here. It'll all be there for you. So let's talk first about the rest period. So most of the time, you come off the summer and the early fall months, you've been playing a ton of golf. You have been possibly traveling, going on vacations. Your schedule's always off in the summertime, at least mine is, with things going on with the kids, family functions. There's a lot more cocktails and beers and parties and everything throughout the summertime. And so the schedule's just crazy. So I'm not talking to the tour players that are coming off of, a season of traveling from Monday to Sunday every single week. I'm talking to you, the guy that has a family, plays at a club, plays local golf, maybe plays some high-level amateur stuff, whatever it is. But I understand that the summertime gets crazy. So we're going to treat your off-season a little bit differently than a tour pro's, but we still have some of these general components where, your schedule's been kind of nuts. So let's take a little bit of rest. And by rest, I don't necessarily mean inactivity, but I mean let's take a break from the clubs. So if you're the guy that's constantly thinking about golf, you're constantly, doing workouts related to golf, you're reading the golf magazines, I want you to stop. I want you to put the clubs down, take a break, take a deep breath. I know some of the best golfers in the world actually put their clubs away, throw them in the closet for a short period of time, or at least back when they used to have an off season, they would do that. And some of the guys wouldn't even pick up a club for a month or two until they felt ready, until they felt the desire to get back out there and play. So take a few weeks off, and I encourage my guys, get out and do something different. Maybe go on a hike, to get that physical need. Go take a hike, take a walk, go for a jog, do some swimming, go take a yoga class, whatever. Just do something a little bit different and kind of change the environment. It's good, from a cross-training standpoint, but also just mentally to kind of take a break. And then in its purest form, rest is sleep. And we had an incredible guest on the 18 Strong podcast, episode number 21, good buddy of mine, Sean Stevenson, who wrote a book called Sleep Smarter. And in our episode, Sean talked about the importance of sleep, your quality of sleep, and then all the different things that affect it and how it affects your performance. So if you're not getting good quality sleep, you're not going to perform as well on the golf course. You're not going to perform as well at your job. Your hormones are going to be thrown off. And some of the things that play into this can be your nutrition, can be, when you're going to bed at night. So he doesn't necessarily tell you how many hours to sleep. If you're a person that can get by on 6 hours or 8 hours or whatever, it's more about the quality of sleep and what it's doing to your body. So if you haven't checked out that episode number 21, definitely go back and look at that. Okay, so that's the rest portion. And that can be, just a short period of time. That could be a week, that could be 2 weeks, depending on your needs. That could be 3 to 4 weeks. All kind of depends on you and how much time you have. Most of the tour players these days have very little off season. I've got a guy, Adam Long, who was on the podcast a few episodes ago. He has a 3-month off season this year. So we're going to kind of break that up into 3 chunks. So the rest period can be a couple of weeks. The next phase is the recuperation phase, and when I hear the term recuperate, I think healing, I think rejuvenation, I think correcting, getting back to normal after a long season. So these are all the things that go into the recuperation phase. And this is when it's kind of time to start getting to work a little bit. You're going to basically figure out what are some of the issues that you have that may have cropped up over the season, or some of the things that you just kind of have found are limiting you in your swing, and we're going to start working on them a little bit. And so again, this period of time can be different for many people, and this can kind of mesh into the next phase as well. But it's in this portion that if you have an injury or you have an issue, I want you to go see a medical practitioner. I want you to see a physical therapist, a doc, a chiropractor. I want you to get assessed, if possible, by a TPI professional, a Nike golf professional, whatever. Get somebody that knows what they're talking about when it comes to the body and it comes to the golf swing. Have them look at you and figure out what's going on if you have any issues. Now, again, I'm a real person. I'm a real guy. Sometimes I'm a stubborn idiot. And I know that many of the people listening to this aren't going to go get assessed. And I would probably say that, if I wasn't in this field and I had my athletic background and was, just listening to this podcast, I don't know if I would be the guy that went and got assessed. So realistically, I know where you're coming from. But if you don't, I want you to kind of pay attention to some of the issues that you may find. What are some of the discomforts that you have on a daily basis? Or when you go to the gym, what are the things that you struggle with? And let's figure out how we can work on those. So some of the biggest things that I see when people come into me, just so you have an idea of what to look for, is difficulty with hip rotation. Being able to rotate fully into, a backswing position or a follow-through position, and that's both on the right leg and left leg. So look at the hip rotation. Trunk rotation is a big one. Most people are a little bit tighter turning one way compared to the other. So, your shoulder turn for your golf swing. Look to see which one's better, if so. If there's a big discrepancy, we got to fix that. Any kind of imbalances, left to right, front to back, those are the things that we need to fix. Another big one is any kind of shoulder pain, shoulder mobility issues. If you have a lot more range of motion on one side, or you've got pain during range of motion in one of your shoulders, that's something that we got to take care of. That's going to only cause more discomfort. It's going to cause flaws in your swing. It's going to cause compensations, and you're never going to get the golf swing that you want. A couple other quick ones: hip flexor tightness, back issues, back discomfort, pain there, different imbalances from left to right, both either upper body or lower body. And then just look at your posture. We've got so many people that are desk jockeys these days. You're at your desk typing, we're texting, we're at the computer, we're driving in the car. Everything is forward. Everything causes us to round our shoulders, hunch our back, stick our chins out. So look at your posture both from a sitting and standing position, but then definitely look at your posture in your golf swing. Those are some of the biggest things that I find are, wreaking havoc on the golfer and causing issues in the swing and in the game. So as I mentioned, if you have the ability, you have the finances, you have the resources, you have the time, go get yourself assessed. If not, I'm going to link up in the show notes an article that was in Golf Digest, and I think this was like 2011 or something like that. But there's a medical professional, physical therapist by the name of Gray Cook, phenomenal strength coach, where he had an article on what they called it the golf combine. And it basically is an in-home assessment of some of the things that we would look at or that would be assessed if you went to a TPI professional. Not exactly the same tests that I would do. And, there's a couple things in there that, may or may not be something I looked at. But it's a good starting point for you to do something at home and just kind of see like, holy crap, I wasn't very good with that, or this needs to be fixed or whatnot. So, again, that's Gray Cook in Golf Digest. I'll link it up in the show notes so you are able to look at it. And it's just kind of a little slideshow and tells you what to look for. Okay, so that was the recuperation phase. And like I said, that can be, a week, 2 weeks. That could really that may go on the entire length of your off season, simply because you're going to be working on some of these things for a long period of time. You're not going to fix everything as much as some of the fitness professionals out there would like you to believe, where you got to fix all these things 100% before you can move into some strength training stuff. I don't buy that. I don't believe that. I don't think anybody's going to be perfectly fixed in that short of a period of time to where we can go into then our strength training phase. So the next is going to be the rebuilding phase. And by rebuilding, I mean exactly, building up strength, building up mass, building up power, basically just kind of whatever your goal is for your off season, whether that be increasing your strength, your swing speed, losing weight, fat loss, whatever it is, this is where you're going to start hammering at that. So this is where most of the real work is done, and you're going to kind of start knocking out some of those different imbalances that you have, and you're also going to start kind of tackling these goals. This is where you're going to regain what you lost over the season. So, I know that a lot of the hockey players that we deal with, when they go through their season, they come back, they've lost a lot of weight, they've been skating so much, they haven't been working out as much, they can't eat enough to keep the calories or to keep the pounds on. So when they come in the off season, a lot of it is just about, bulking up, getting their strength back. Depending on what you did over the summertime and over your golf season, sometimes it's a debulking where you got to get rid of the extra calories that the cocktails and all the client dinners and things like that and traveling. So, whatever your goal is, this is where you're going to kind of hammer that out. Now, I think it's important to point out here that basically, in my experience, I found that most simply, many of us don't need a super detailed program. In fact, the less training experience you have, the lower training level you have, it's more important to simply get on just a good strength program, because your goal is really to correct imbalances, fix any injuries, improve your general function, your general strength, and basically combat the daily living, the postural issues that we have, and make sure that we're kind of negating some of those bad forces that they have on our body. Now, then we can add in, maybe the fat loss or increased strength, but you'll get a lot of that simply by adding in a good general strength training program. As a little bit of a guide, though, let's break down some of the repetitions that, basically if you're doing a fat loss program or, working on like more muscular endurance, you're going to stick more in the high range of repetitions for each set. So a set of your program may be 12 to 20 repetitions, whereas if you're looking for, to increase mass a little bit, increase your strength, you're going to be more in the mid-range of reps, which would be more of a 6 to 12 repetitions. And this is kind of where I would put most people. Again, the lower your training level, and if you listen to the episode that Charlie Weingroff had on here on the 18 Strong podcast a few episodes ago, Charlie talked about the fact that, unless you're a super high-level athlete that has a lot of training experience, you don't need a very detailed and specific exercise prescription. You're going to get most of your benefit from a general preparation program. So, I'm going to stick most of my people and would probably most likely recommend to you that you be kind of in the 6 to 12 repetition range, and vary that from program to program. But and there's different reasons why you would do that, which we can't individualize a program for everybody on this podcast. But that's going to give you a little bit of the strength building. That's going to give you a little bit of the kind of gearing towards some of the muscular endurance and fat loss a little bit. But it's also not going to allow you to try lifting such heavy weight where you're going to hurt yourself or your form's going to get out of control. So, and then lastly, the lower rep range would be, more the 3 to 6 reps, and that's going to be more the speed, the power, that type of stuff, which, many of you may get into. Many of you may be doing that stuff already. But again, just be very careful when you start to get into those ranges. And I would recommend, if you are doing that kind of stuff, getting more into that heavier lifting, lower repetitions, that's when you should probably have a coach or know what you're doing a little bit, have some experience, or have somebody kind of guiding you and mentoring you as far as, doing things properly. Last thing we want is to get you hurt and for you not to be able to play for the next season. Now, I'm almost going to contradict that very last statement by saying this next thing, but I think it's also important to point out that no matter what your repetition ranges are, whether you're in the 12 to 20 range, the 6 to 12 range, or somewhere in the middle, I do think it's important for golfers to start dabbling in lifting heavier things. I find that in many situations, people are afraid to kind of test the limits. Whereas, I know back in my soccer days, my athletic days, and, some of the training, you gotta kind of push yourself. And if you've played any kind of sports or you've done any training in the past, you can realize that the human body is amazing and is much more resilient than you would think. And it's capable of doing a lot of things. So sometimes you just got to kind of grin and bear it and get in there and get after it. Just like sometimes on that tee box, you got to swing out of your shoes and just smash that ball as hard as you can. It's not something you would recommend doing all the time, but if you want to make huge gains over your off season, be smart about it, but challenge yourself. So in this whole rebuilding phase, you're basically, that's your strengthening phase where you're starting to get into hammering out your goals. You're working on, whatever it is that you've set, your fat loss, your strength, and, you're starting to work on that. Then the next phase would be more of the refocusing phase. And depending on how much time you have, that kind of tells you how long you're, working on some of those other things in the rebuilding. And then once you start getting closer to the season, you're going to start kind of refocusing your attention towards golf again. And doesn't mean that you're, changing up and getting away from the strength training workouts, but this is where you're going to start, getting a little bit more, I'm going to air quote this because I hate this term, you're going to get a little more golf specific. So you're focused a little bit more on some of the speed and power activities. Again, not going crazy with the weights, but this is where you might start throwing in some more med ball throws or tying in some plyometrics with your lifts and doing some overspeed training. If you don't know what overspeed training is, we'll get into that, and we've actually got a kind of a cool tool that you guys can check out. But overspeed training is basically kind of utilizing different weights of clubs to increase your swing speed. And so we'll talk about more of that. This is the refocusing period is when you start to practice golf a little bit. Maybe start making some swings, start spending a little less time in the gym, maybe start focusing a little bit more on, some of the stuff that you can do on the course if your course is open, or just hitting some balls or doing some of those things. You're basically going to be doing a little bit less volume, working on a little bit more power stuff. You're going to maybe do some heavier weights and kind of lower down the repetitions a little bit. So you're going to be, another suggestion would be to start adding in some more rotational pattern stuff. So I'm not a guy that throws a ton of rotational exercises in all of my programs. Just because I work with primarily golfers doesn't mean that I have everybody rotating and doing a bunch of these crazy drills that mimic a golf swing. I think that especially in that rebuilding phase, you can spend your time more efficiently working on some of the pushes and pulls and squats and deadlifts and things like that are going to give you a good, solid, strong base, and then tying in some of the rotational stuff in that period, but then maybe starting to focus a little bit more on that when you get closer towards the season. Makes more sense to me that you're starting to kind of prime your body to get ready for that golfing motion. So just basically refocusing is starting to think more about the season, start to develop kind of what your in-season plan is going to be. What's the maintenance that you're going to do during the season, how many workouts you're going to do, what kind of workouts are you going to do, maybe talk to a professional or strength coach or somebody that can kind of guide you there. And then, in the season is when you want to basically start kind of a program where you're going to be able to maintain what you did in this off season. So the off season, you're going to make some huge gains, and then you want to maintain that through the season. So that may have all sounded pretty complicated, and I'm not going to lie to you, it can be, but some of this is geared, again, more towards the guys that are traveling all over the place. And so when people talk about the off season and what you should be doing, and it's many times not relative to the regular golfer. So I'm realistic. I realize that you've got kids and families and holidays and travel and work and all that stuff, and you don't have the time or you don't need to train like a tour player. So I want to break this down even a little simpler. I want to give you kind of the bare bones of what I would suggest you do and implement into your program, and then maybe what are some of the add-on things that, in case you have extra time or you've got some issues or whatever, you can start kind of throwing that stuff in. But as the bare bones of what I want you to do to start this off season, first things first is you have to have a plan of attack. And by plan of attack, that means you have to have some goals laid out, written out, that you want to achieve. And it's no different than any business goal that you've ever set or any life goal that you've ever set. It makes it so much more realistic when you write it down. So what I'm going to have you do is write down 3 to 5 goals that you want to achieve this off season. And that can be a variety of different things, but write down 3 to 5 things, something tangible that you could, at the end of your golf season or the end of your off season, say, yes, I did that. Yes, I did that. No, I didn't do that. And after you get those 3 to 5 goals written down, I want you to then look at that and say, if there was one thing that would make the biggest difference in my game or my health, it would be, and pick one of those goals, and that's going to be your main focus for your off season. That could be swing speed, that could be weight loss, that could be weight gain, that could be, increase your distance off the tee, or get rid of a physical limitation like I can't touch my toes. I want to be able to touch my toes. So pick 1 or 2 of the most important ones and give those your main focus for this off season. And now that you have those 1 or 2 goals, the next step is to recommit yourself. So you've got it written down, but you have to mentally make a decision. You have to mentally draw a line in the sand and say, okay, I'm committing to these goals, and this is what's going to happen in my off season. Because if you don't do that, if you don't commit, then it's all just going to kind of be up in the air. It's like that New Year's resolution that you never wrote down. You just, I kind of said that I would do this, but... So write it down, put it in ink, put it on a piece of paper that you see every day, whatever you need to do, but make sure you write it down and you recommit to it. All right, now as far as what you're going to be doing on a weekly basis, here's what I suggest. You're going to have, we talked about, the recuperating phase where you're kind of looking and finding what is wrong with you, and you're going to develop basically some corrective exercises. So I want you to have a corrective exercise program, meaning whatever your issues are. If you can't touch your toes, you're working on touching your toes. If you have bad rotation of your right hip, you're working on the rotation of your right hip. I want you to have a corrective exercise program that's no more than 5 to 10 minutes long. Because if it's any longer than that, you're most likely going to blow it off. You won't take time to do it. And I only want you to do this. You only have to do this every day that you're not doing one of your strength training programs. Now, you can do it more often than that because a corrective exercise program is, one of those things you can do on a daily basis. But I'm not going to make you do it 7 days a week. If you're doing 3 strength days, I want you to do your corrective exercise program at least on those other 4 days. If you have time on the day you do a strength program, then you can go ahead and throw your corrective exercises in there. And again, some of these things are going to include dynamic stretches. Foam rolling is a huge one. I like seeing people foam roll before they start their workout. Some rehab exercises, if you have any rehab exercises. And then one that I have thrown in with a lot of my players, and I love doing this myself, is left-handed swings. So if you're a right-handed golfer, I want you doing left-handed swings, 20 of them at a time, just as a number to be thrown out there. Do 20 off-handed swings, because that's basically just going to get you rotating in the opposite direction. And that's a huge corrective exercise that not many people out there do. Now we're going to move on to your strength training program. I want you to have a solid strength training program in place. Again, something written down where you know exactly what you're doing. And my suggestion is it should only take about 30 minutes to 45 minutes max. Again, we're looking at compliance. We want to make sure that this is something that you're going to do. And I want you to only have preferably 3 days a week. If you, for whatever reason, have extra time and you know you can get 4 days, and you know for sure you can get 4 days, then you can do a 4-day program. But if you're not sure, I want you to commit to doing 3 days a week. Make it a total body program. So it's not an upper body day, lower body day, or it's not a back and chest or anything like that. There are times when I will do that with people. But for you, again, we're making this as simple as possible. We want to simplify things so you'll get it done. So 3 strength training days, make it a total body workout, and I'm going to suggest that you put in some sort of a pushing exercise, some sort of a pulling exercise. That'd be more of an upper body. Pushing could be a press, pulling could be a pull-up or a row. You're going to throw in some sort of a squat or lunging exercise, and then you're going to throw in some sort of a deadlift or like glute or hamstring exercise. Again, I don't have time, or we don't have time to go into every exercise that's possible, but we do have plenty of videos over on the 18 Strong YouTube channel, and actually on the 18strong.com platform, where you can kind of go and look at some different exercises that could be suggested for the push, the pull, the squat, lunge, the deadlift. So we've got plenty of stuff over there, and we're always putting new content out there. But most importantly, I don't really care all that much about the number of sets, the number of reps, because once again, we're just making this as simple as possible. What I would most likely suggest, stick to 3 to 4 sets of somewhere in the 8 to 12 range just to start you off. And that would be more the first part of the off season, first part of the rebuilding program. And then as you start to get more into refocusing towards your season, then I'd start to go a little bit less on the reps, maybe a little bit more on the sets, but you're going to start backing down the reps a little bit. Have a plan, have a program that you have written out. It doesn't have to be perfect, just have something that you're gonna do. And once you have that written program, I want you to stick to that for 4 weeks at least. Your body, it takes time for your body to get used to some of the exercises. So you're not going to see strength gains if you're switching up your program all the time, if you're just trying to get creative with your different exercises. I want you to have a solid program for 4 weeks. You'll have 3 different strength days. So make those exercises different on each of those days, but then do those 3 workouts for 4 weeks straight. This is going to do a couple things. It's going to give you some variety because you're going to have, the 3 different days. But by doing those same workouts for 4 weeks straight, which to many people is going to seem very strange, and could seem a little bit boring, but you're going to start developing some of those neural patterns that allows your muscles to start working better. And then once your muscles start working better and your brain's working better in connection with your body, you're going to start to notice some huge strength gains. And that's what we're looking for this off season. And then finally, I want to get into what I like to call kind of add-on exercises or auxiliary exercises, the things that are, what some may call kind of the icing on the cake. So if you've only got a small amount of time, I'm mostly going to stick with those bigger things, the lunges, the deadlifts, the squats, what we mentioned before. But there's some definite pieces that I include in all of my clients' programs, especially the guys that have the time to get their full workouts in. And some of those areas are, I'm just going to kind of list them, and I'll kind of go through a couple exercises, names of exercises, and then, that way you can kind of look them up, or you can kind of find them on the 18 Strong platform. But one of the big ones that is often overlooked are the shoulders and the mid-back. So I will always throw in some sort of rotator cuff exercise or some sort of middle and upper back exercise, which can be kind of a rowing in a high position. I do something that we call wall angels, which I learned from Tom House from TPI, which I think are exercise. It's an exercise that everybody should be doing. It's basically you up against the wall doing a snow angel and pushing into the wall as hard as possible. I'll make sure that we get some videos of that up for sure over the next couple of weeks, because that's one of my favorite exercises. And I want to say I have almost every one of my players doing that right now, because it's so good for the upper back. And then same with something we call the iron cross, which is kind of a similar position up on the wall, just kind of holding yourself in that position. Next is going to be the hips and the glutes. The hips are such an important part of the golf swing, just generating power, generating stability. And some of the easiest ways to target those, yes, you're going to get some of this in your lunges and your deadlifts and those exercises, but sometimes you got to target them a little more specifically. I do a lot of band exercises, the little ankle band. It's just one little loop of a band you put around the legs, and you can do walks. You can go side to side, front to back, all different kinds of motions to really target those. And then something that I've started doing more recently, I learned this at the DNS seminar, dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, which is not something you're probably familiar with, but I learned this at a seminar a few weeks ago, or a couple months ago, I guess. Some what we would call closed chain hip exercises, where the leg is kind of stationary on the ground and you're moving the body around, in a stabilized position. You're kind of rotating the body, and therefore the hip is working very hard. So those are some great exercises. Again, some of the stuff we'll be putting up in the future. The next one that I've become a huge fan of, and I neglected to put this in a lot of my programs in recent years and have recently seen the importance of it, is grip exercises. And this can show up in a variety of different ways. It can be hanging from a pull-up bar. We've got a fat grip pull-up bar in our place, and that's one of my favorite exercises to have guys do and for me to do myself. I've had some elbow issues over the past several months, and once I started doing some of these grip exercises, that elbow pain has pretty much gone away. Getting away from some of the traditional stretches and things like that I would have taught somebody from physical therapy a while back. Getting into some of these fat grip exercises, hangs, farmer's walks where you're holding heavier weight, and then doing like some rotational type stuff with some weight has made a huge difference in both myself, my discomfort level at the elbows, as well as my patients. And if you have strong forearms, strong elbows that aren't subject to pain, you can really generate a lot more club head speed. Next are the calves. So doing some sort of toe raises, or calf raises, I should say, like on a step or on the leg press. Because we walk so much, our calves, our ankles, it's really important that we have that motion there. And on the golf course, you're taking so many steps throughout a round that you need to make sure that those things are moving properly. And again, I'm saying that these are all things that are kind of add-ons. So typically what I'll do is at the end of a workout, I'll have one of these little categories that I throw in if I've got time for somebody. Next would be some sort of sprints, interval training. We've talked about that a lot on the podcast, but I don't know that, it's a very, very important piece. But if you're struggling for time and I have the choice of utilizing weights and strength training versus sprints, I'm most likely going to lean towards the strength training stuff, because you can get some of that cardiovascular benefit, especially for golfers, out of doing the weights, and you can get some of the fat loss stuff by doing the weights. Whereas the sprints, yes, they're awesome, and I love doing them, but I'll pick the strength training over the sprints more often than not. And then finally, I mentioned overspeed training before, which is where you're basically using some different weights of clubs, a heavier club, a regular weighted club, and a lighter club. And you're doing different swinging drills to really just to increase the speed of your golf swing. And so we've got a free gift for you guys, which we've had here at 18 Strong for a long time. It's at 18strong.com/the the number 5 yards book. If you go there, basically our ebook is dedicated to overspeed training, and it's an incredible tool that you can use to gain speed on your swing. I've seen guys increase their clubhead speed by several miles an hour just in one single session by doing this. And actually, we're going to have some of the guys from Super Speed Golf on over the next couple of weeks. They've come up with a product called the Super Speed Golf Sticks, where it's dedicated to simply overspeed training drills, and they're pretty slick looking. I just got a set. It's basically a golf shaft with a little weight on the end, and you do these different training drills. And so the guys there are nice enough, we kind of partnered up with them. So if you go to superspeedgolf.com, you can check out the Super Speed sticks. And if you decide to order it, use the code 18STRONG, and they will set you up with a 10% discount on the sticks. And actually, we'll get a little kickback from that too, so full disclosure there. But every one of my clients that has used them has loved them. We've been doing the overspeed training drills at Elevated Performance for a little while, but now we've got some awesome tools. So again, that's something that you can definitely add in, and will be, again, the icing on the cake, some of that 1% factor. But if you don't have the time, stick with the general basic program. Okay, so in conclusion, I know we've covered a lot, and there's a lot of technical stuff, there's a lot of details. Here's what I want you to remember. The off season is a time to get everything back in order. So you've had your summer fun, you've played a lot of golf, you've traveled. Now it's time to get refocused and start making some of those improvements, rather than developing excuses for next year and why it's taking you so long to get back in the swing of things. You should use this as a time to get ahead of all those buddies of yours that aren't doing this stuff. You can make huge improvements and get way better. I've got golfers that I work with that train on a regular basis. They do this stuff over the wintertime. They're in their 50s, their 60s. They're playing better golf, and they're hitting a ball further than ever because they do some of this stuff. And so they're much happier playing the game. They're loving the game, and it's a lot more fun when you're out driving your buddies. We all know that. So by doing some of this stuff, you're going to get yourself primed up for next season and really make a difference coming out of the gates. Now, as I mentioned, I know that there's a lot covered here, and unfortunately we can't create an individualized program for everybody that's listening. But I hope you got some good takeaways out of what we talked about today. Use it as a place to start. And we've got quite a few videos on our website, on our YouTube channel, tons and tons of podcasts with awesome information. So please utilize this as a resource. And then I know you're going to have questions. So any questions that you have, throw them out to us on social media. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Just look up 18 Strong. We're newly on Instagram. We've been starting to post a lot on Instagram and Facebook. So, feel free to touch us on... Feel free to tag us on Instagram. And then, of course, we've got the YouTube channel where you can make comments there too. So as a reminder, go to superspeedgolf.com. Use the code 18STRONG if you want to get your speed sticks and try some of this overspeed training stuff. But let's make this the best off season that you've ever had. And let's start the 2016 year of golf better than you've ever done before. So I want to thank you for coming to the 18 Strong podcast. We're going to have a bunch of great guests coming up. As always, let us know how we can make the show better. And don't forget to train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.